I got it. Sign up. Sign it up. You know, it's for open. You want new governor or governor? So I know I don't have a microphone. I'm hoping that you can all hear me. If there's any individuals present or in person here to who want to provide comment or participate in the public hearing, please sign up using the sign up sheets located at the table near the entrance. Okay, well, it is 6 o'clock, Tuesday, November 19th, and I will call this City of Lacey regular city council meeting to order. Before we get started, the mayor is excused absence tonight, but all the other council members are present tonight. And so with that, all those who are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we get started, I will read the city's land acknowledgement. We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian tribe and the Squaxin Island tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Medicine Creek Treaty as the traditional stewards of this land since time immemorial and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call the attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation and state and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that the community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854. And with that, can I get an approval for our amended agenda? We did have one amendment, and I believe it was addressing proclamations will go ahead of general public comment.
Moving the proclamation before the public hearing.
Before the public hearing, okay. And with that, can I get a motion for our amended agenda?
I would move to approve the amended agenda and consent agenda as published.
Second. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. We have an agenda. First item on our agenda is going to be public recognitions and presentations. And tonight we will be hearing from the Lacey Youth Council report.
Hello, Council. Wonderful to see you all again. It is the first actual school report of the school year, which is fun. I'm from Pocono Paul II High School. This is my second year, senior. Okay, so our fall sports have finished officially, and we are happy to report that volleyball went to the final round of state qualifications and were undefeated in their main season. And the cross country girls won second at state, with the boys winning third at state. Our winter sports seasons have also kicked off, with basketball starting, I almost said rehearsal, practice this week, and cheer starting within the next 2 weeks. And because it is the season of giving, our annual chili drive has started with some major competition. I think the seniors are going to win. And our giving tree is opening soon so that we can donate to families so that they have a good Christmas. Earlier in the year, we also celebrated our freshman and sophomore retreat, and our juniors took the PSATs. We have been able to celebrate many community building activities from movie nights to homecoming, to even in-school community builders, and it's been a really great time. And our Stellar Explorers, robotics, and knowledgeable teams have all been working really hard. Stellar Explorers has already gone through their first preliminary round of competition, and they are doing well. Thank you.
Hi, Council. My name is Stuart Trent, and I'm representing Riveridge High School. Recently, the fall sports have just ended, and it was definitely a bittersweet season. This week is the start of our winter sports, and our school is definitely excited because I know I am, because I manage the boys basketball team along with 2 other students. The drama club and the theater class are getting ready to perform our winter musical, which is very awesome. During Halloween week, our school clubs hosted a fun event open to students and people in our community called Trunk or Treat. And last week, Timberline, North Thurston, and Riveridge High School came together as ASB and leadership to coordinate and collaborate for a district-wide project. As our holidays are coming up, our school community is working towards to uplift spirit in sports, clubs, and arts and more. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kieran Sills Powell, and I am a student at Summit Virtual Academy. I'm a junior there. These last few months, Summit has been focusing on gathering the community, and Summit is all grades, so that's elementary, middle school, high school. Ways we've been doing that is we've been hosting movie nights, park meetups, and last month we did a My Morbid Mind trip, so all the students had the opportunity to go with a discount. And then this month, we're hosting a bingo night, which you can either attend or you can volunteer at.
Hi, my name is Lily Schneider and I'm a senior at North Thurston High School. Recently at North Thurston, we finished our first quarter, I was gonna say second, our first quarter, which meant students were working on getting their grades up and there were a lot of teacher-parent conferences. We recently had our Veterans Day Assembly where we got to thank and honor staff members who served in the military. And our horticulture classes actually made flower boutonnieres for all of them, which I thought was very nice. Fall sports are coming to an end. The only team of ours that is still proceeding is our volleyball team, which actually won districts. And winter sport tryouts are this week, and I'm actually on the girls basketball team, and I hope that we make it to state for the 3rd year in a row. So, thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Avani Kumar. I'm a junior at Timberline High School. And last month, Timberline hosted an event for the Association of Washington Student Leaders to work with other students to create new ideas to bring our community together. Basically it.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Luca, and I'm a sophomore representing the homeschool community. The homeschool community in the area is very active with many different clubs and field trips that homeschoolers from Pierce and Thurston County participate in. One unfortunate recent development is North Thurston High School limiting their AP tests to students within the school, which removes an option that homeschoolers and private school students have to take AP tests. Personally, I'm mostly involved in my sports team community and the Boy Scouts, and I know several other homeschoolers involved in similar social groups. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Faith Kim, and I'm a senior at Northwest Christian High School. Most of my news mainly pertain to sports today. Our volleyball team recently won districts, and we got 6th place in state, which was our first time going to state since 2018. Our football team also won our district's competition, which was very expected since it is about our 4th year in a row winning. Our tennis team also won first in districts, and I think we are going to state soon. And our winter sports started this Monday, and these sports include basketball and powerlifting. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Zuri, and I will be doing the Lacey report, the Lacey Youth Council report. And last meeting, we reviewed the results of an activity that explained different styles of communication. And we hope that this will empower the Youth Council to communicate more effectively in meetings. And at today's meeting, we spoke with Ryan Andrews, the planning manager here at the city. And he talked about the comprehensive plan and the survey, which the Lacey Youth Council will take and report back to him our next meeting. And lastly, we made a candy salad team bonding video. Thank you.
Thank you. They're all getting so much better at public speaking. Next item on our agenda is our Governor's Smart Community Awards for Lacey Makerspace Expansion Project. Presenting, we have Andrew Ness from the State of Washington Department of Commerce, Vanessa Dolby from the Community Development Economic Director of the city here at Lacey, and Sarah Schelling, Planning and Economic Development Manager.
We had an unexpected omission. I also want to invite Wesley White up. He will lead off the presentation and hand it off. So Wesley's our Economic Development Coordinator for the city of Lacey.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor Mike Miller and council member. My name is Wesley Nguyen, Economic Development Coordinator. Thank you for giving me the privilege to introduce the Governor's 2024 Smart Community Award. There's a African proverb that says, it takes a village to raise a child. And in this case tonight, it took a lot of partners to raise the Lacey Makerspace. I wanted to call out the founding partners, the City of Lacey, Thurston EDC, and the St. Martin's University for being dreamt of the project and then actualized the project. So thank you for them for their unwavering partnership. The Smart Partnership Award recognized successful achievement of a jointly developed project, implemented a local comprehensive plan. In our 2015 comprehensive plan, we identified the Lacey Makerspace as one of the projects to enhance our local economic growth. My predecessor, George Smith, and the former Community and Economic Development Director, Rick Watt, played a crucial role in getting this project off the ground. So I want to say thank you to them and give them a huge shout out for their contribution. The Makerspace opened in 2019 with about 3,000 square feet of space inside Saver Hall with about 2 staff and several volunteers, including our former mayor, Grant Sackerson here. He volunteers to greet people coming in the door, so really appreciate that. And then now the size is 3 times what it was when we started it. It's almost over 8,000 square foot of its original size. They have about 5 staff now working. And they have about, Michelle said earlier, over 250 members now joining on their membership. They open 5 days a week. The Makerspace offer members opportunity to take classes to improve their skills and use a variety of different high-tech equipments. They can learn to program and use 3D printers like Kelly did. They also can use CNC routers and even practice simulated welding. They purchased a simulated welding station that they could do training for that. So this incredible place have become a regional innovative hub for hobbies, garage thinkers, and even entrepreneurs. Michelle was saying earlier they had folks come in from Portland earlier to use the place. So it's amazing. But this is only possible because of your leadership. So I want to say thank you for approving this project, and thank you to our partners for making this possible. So before I bring up the presenter, I have 2 videos I'd like to play. Alyssa, can you play those videos? The first video was made by Department of Commerce. I want to say thank you, Peter, for doing this video. And the second video is from our Governor, Jay Inslee.
Located on the campus of St. Martin's University in Lacey, Washington, a space has come to life where creativity and community come together to drive innovation.
Our economy is really at its best when people are being creative and thinking outside the box and creating new products and ideas. But you need a place for that to happen.
The community to come and learn new skills, to maybe get some hands-on experience, is the opportunity for businesses to look at this and maybe get access to state-of-the-art equipment or train their employees.
So if you build a matrix about all the resources that we represented in the economic development world, what's missing? What was missing was the makerspace.
We have over 200 members right now that are traveling from Seattle and Aberdeen and Tacoma, Spanaway, Rochester, and we actually have 2 members right now who are traveling here from Portland.
To start transitioning into that mode where they're going to give back to the community and represent St. Martin's into our area, that's really neat for me to see that they're already thinking that way, and the makerspace is a point of connection for them.
Ultimately, it's the idea that you can connect community support, local government support with higher ed and the K through 12 schools and people that just have ideas.
So this woman found us. She had just Googled makerspaces in the community, and she was here every day making her earrings, these beautiful earrings. And she launched her business at a music festival in Montana later that summer, and she made like $30,000 her first summer.
This isn't just a place of business. This is a place of community, of partnership, and building a better community for every individual.
And it's really nice to see that the Governor's Smart Communities Award recognized that effort here to create this unique space that has value not only for Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, Thurston County, but areas beyond Thurston County. It's truly a regional hub and an opportunity for people to access this technology and the mentorship from Michelle and her staff.
Thank you to the Governor for the Governor's Award. Thank you to the Department of Commerce. Thank you for all of our partners that are new and old and existing and original, but especially thank you to the founding partners.
The makerspace in particular, we knew that we have a unique opportunity with St. Martin's University, with our Economic Development Council, with our schools, and this whole idea of innovative community.
This is an example of how those 3 non-traditional partners came together, and for us to have a commonality. It's really a cool thing.
We got one more video.
Congratulations to Lacey for winning the Governor's Smart Communities Award. We really appreciate what you're doing, helping to train people in whole new businesses. And congratulations to Rick Walk, whose leadership has been really helpful in Lacey. And let's keep the ball rolling.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. Now I wanted to bring up Andrew Neese to the front. Andrew, please come up. Andrew represent Washington Department of Commerce this evening. Our team got the news from Andrew back in July, and we were ecstatic, not because we got the award, well, maybe a little bit, but it's because, it recognized a lot of people that were part of this supporting of Lacey Makerspace. So, Andrew.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for letting me be here today and take up a little bit of time in your meeting. I'm really excited to be here. So this is actually my first year in charge of the Governor's Smart Community Awards. And so it's my job to implement the awards program and to make sure that I get to have these moments like I'm going to tonight and hand you these awards. And I wanted to say, it's kind of hard to follow all of that, but the judges loved your award. So it's my job to convene the independent judges that come in and go through it. Your award, your project. They loved the partnership. They loved that all 3 came together. They loved how many partners it's expanded to. You mentioned the 250 people. They just kept talking about more and more during the review meeting. We were going through the applications. They're like, wow, how many people have used this by now? And so they were just overwhelmed by it. And so it had a coolness factor. It was literally one of the judges said, this is my favorite project in the entire mix. You guys did an amazing job. You should know from a background standpoint, Commerce administers the awards program for the governor's office. The governor's Smart Community Awards have been around since 2006. So it's 18-year program. We're pushing towards 20 years. I think Lacey's won a couple times in that time. And I've gone through the entire portfolio, but this has got to be my favorite for what you guys have won on, because it's comprehensive plan related, and yet it was so much more. And so we're really excited to be here tonight. We're really excited to give you this award. It's the best job I have at Commerce right now. And so I'm really thankful to be able to be here tonight and just share this with you. Thank you. Rick, would you mind accepting the award? And maybe we can get a picture. I figured we'd hand one of them out and try not to take up too much of your council time, but. So. Is it all right if we get Michael Cade as well and?
Yeah.
Get the partners.
I would love it if we could take a moment for a couple of photos.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, of course,
we can do that.
I realize you're in council meeting.
Did Bill already leave?
I don't, we got Nate.
Yep, from St.
Oh,
Martin's
sure,
University.
Nate.
Yeah.
Hey, Nate.
Malcolm, why don't you jump in too?
Sorry about that.
Oh, Graham?
Hey, Graham, you should.
Start.
You should have, Graham's been involved in this.
So I'm a communications professional by trade, so I'm gonna ask if we can get individual shots of each award being hung.
Look over here. Perfect. Got a few of them. Stay up here. I get one here.
I'm usually behind the camera. I'm not usually in front of it.
Yeah, Graham, let's go together. Okay. You come on with Andrew. Okay.
Sir.
You shake the hand and I'll hold the deal.
Look it over this way. Perfect. If I get one more of everyone together.
Stay up there, Michael.
Stand there.
Stay up there, Michael.
All three of you guys.
A little closer. All right, look over this way. Get a few of them, perfect. And then let's get a couple of the council as well. I think we made it best over here.
You want us to do that?
Stand in front of the dais, like the dais, yeah. That's a recommendation from the plan.
Staff, do you come up with us too?
The partnership picture.
Closer. Please look okay. You're so.
Take a couple of them.
Thank you.
We might have to.
That was it. Yep, photos was it. I think we did that. I think we did an excellent job. Okay, this is the cities. All right.
Yeah. Oh, for Nate.
Bed councils in Georgia, if I could say just a couple of words.
Absolutely.
Again, it's a community effort, as Wesley mentioned, and Wesley mentioned, early on, George Smith, they used to work here in Graham, but I want to highlight how opportunistic things can be at the same, when you hit common ideas at the same time. So this really started with a meeting between Graham and George. And it was an idea where at the moment we all were going to different conferences and there was talk about these concepts. Graham talks about being on the school board, going through a conference and conversations about bullying. And we were doing the same thing. So just by happenstance that George and grammar about one thing and brought up this topic on another, and that was the little seed. And then all of a sudden we started sharing that idea and people started coming to the table. I recognize Brad Hooper of Northwestern Public Schools. He was instrumental in those early days of bringing things with technology. Insight, as he runs some of the programs at the school district related to advanced manufacturing and makerspace. So having that early input of knowledge and base of what we need to look for and guidance, and then Graham just constantly be there driving and trying to get that volunteer and energy behind this to keep us so we didn't lose traction. So just want to recognize those two in the audience because they were very involved early on to help create and get this thing to a position where we can launch. I remember those times we were talking on Michael Cade as well. We're like, okay, are we ready to go? I don't know if we're not quite ready to go. Do we do this? And oh, we can't. And so, and also Jim DeBosio was a huge part of that as well early on. But I just wanted to recognize how this really started and how a little idea at the right time where people are talking about it, and all of a sudden it just explodes into a great community partnership into what we have today. So, and again, I look forward to seeing where this evolves as people pick this up and get more involved and breathe new energy into it and see where it evolves over the next 5 years, 10 years going forward. So again, thank you, Department of Commerce, and this is a great thing to celebrate. So thank you.
Very uplifting moment for the city of Lacey. Thank you all. Our next item on our agenda is under proclamations. And tonight's first proclamation is Small Business Saturday. Leading us out is typically Council Member Dunning.
It's right there.
City of Lacey official proclamation. Whereas the city of Lacey celebrates and supports our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And
whereas there are currently 33.3 million small businesses in the United States, which represents 99.9% of firms with paid employees in the United States. And
whereas small businesses employ over 47.3% of employees in the private sector in the United States and are responsible for 63% of new jobs created over the past 20 years. And
whereas 59% of shoppers reported they shopped online with a small business and 55% reported they dined or ordered takeout from a small restaurant, bar, or cafe on Small Business Saturday in 2023. And
whereas the city of Lacey supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And
whereas advocacy groups and public and private organizations in our community and across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Malcolm Miller, Deputy Mayor of the City of Lacey, on behalf of the Lacey City Council, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 30th, 2024 as Small Business Saturday in the City of Lacey and urge all community members to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Dated today, November 19th, 2024. And tonight, receiving this proclamation, we have Amber Young, who is the president of Lacey South Sound Chamber of Commerce and America's Credit Union.
Oh, but you guys said you literally said everything I was gonna say. Thank you.
If you'd like to say a few words, you can. You don't have to.
I'm not. We appreciate this. The Chamber of Commerce appreciates this. Our small businesses definitely appreciate this. So thank you very much.
Next on our agenda is our second proclamation of tonight, celebrating Veterans Appreciation Month. And Councilmember Dye.
City of Lacey official proclamation. Whereas members of the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marines have answered a high calling to serve and have helped protect and secure the United States of America at every turn. And
whereas our country is forever indebted to our veterans for their courage and exemplary service service as selfless individuals who, when duty called, willingly put themselves in harm's way to defend the lives and liberty of others. And
Whereas we honor those who laid down their lives in freedom's defense and made the ultimate sacrifice for our benefit. And
Whereas on Veterans Day, we salute those who have proudly worn the uniform of the United States of America and the families who served alongside them. And we express our enduring gratitude, both in words and in actions, for their service. And
Whereas, as many veterans face overwhelming unknowns, through community collaborations, we can ensure that those who have served their nation receive the resources they deserve. And
Whereas through their commitment to freedom, our veterans have positively impacted millions of lives and made our country and the world more secure. And the city of Lacey resolves that their sacrifices will always be remembered. So now, therefore, I, Malcolm Miller, Deputy Mayor for the City of Lacey, on behalf of the Lacey City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2024 as Veterans Appreciation Month in the City of Lacey. And I encourage all community members to recognize the valor and sacrifice of our veterans and to actively support our local veterans and their family members. Dated today, November 19th, 2024. And tonight, accepting this award, or should I say this proclamation, is Mark Moffitt, who is the Social Services Manager, Thurston County Development Disabilities Veterans Assistance Program.
I can prepare comments a little longer than hers, if you don't mind.
Okay. Some comments.
All right.
Please step up here.
Okay.
And please share your comments.
Okay, great, you bet, thank you. So, good evening, council. I'm Mark Moffitt, Social Services Program Manager for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. I have programs for people with developmental disabilities and veterans. The city of Lacey and Thurston County have a strong partnership and investment in veterans through the Lacey Veterans Service Hub. Thanks in large part to your mayor, Andy Ryder, and to this council for your commitment to the 30,000 plus veterans that call Thurston County home. I'm a retired Army vet of 24 years. In the past 15 years, I've helped veterans transition from the military. Most of the time, veterans are excited about leaving, right? There's a honeymoon phase, but that only lasts maybe days, months, maybe years. But at some point, they're gonna miss that camaraderie. They're gonna miss the purpose that they had in the military, and they're gonna miss that identity they had and trying to build that. And what you've done with the Lacey Veteran Service Hub, you've created a community. And that community helps with veteran benefits, it helps with financial assistance, with counseling, and a host of other things that go on there. So I really thank this council and especially Mayor Ryder for your commitment to that. And whenever I talk to veterans or about veterans, I always have to thank the families, because without the families, without a strong family, we wouldn't be able to do our job overseas with any commitment, to be honest. And we, as the military, we get to do all the fun stuff overseas, right? It's the family that stays back, that has to continue with the chores and worry about their family member if they're with their safety. So I really want to appreciate veterans' families as well. And can I get a round of hands of who are veterans out here? I was thinking you. We would like to do one more thing. I hope it's not wrong, but we have a veterans, and I remember you, Board of Health.
Yeah.
It just came to my mind. We have a Veterans Advisory Board, and I have my chair here today. If he could just come up for a moment. Bill Powell.
Good evening, Councilman. My name is William Powell. I'm also the chairperson for the Veteran Thurston County Advisory Board for the last 2 years, and this year coming up. Hopefully I have somebody to replace me, but it's been an honor serving the veterans right now. I also used to work for a program called Sidewalk. I think some of y'all know about it. Well, I used to help veterans get into housing, which I still try to help veterans get into housing now. Down at the hub, but I also do claims and all that with veterans. All right. It's been an honor. I served for 20 years. It was an honor serving, and it's still an honor helping veterans out now and their families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our agenda tonight is public comment. I know that we didn't have any written public comment, and it didn't appear that anybody signed up to do public comment online. Is there anybody in these council chambers who would like to address this council?
Nobody signed up.
Okay, all right, well, seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is our public hearing for our 2025 budget hearing. It is now 6:36 PM and I will officially open this public hearing. Presenting tonight, we have our finance director, Mr. Troy Wu.
Good evening. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As Deputy Mayor announced, this is a public hearing on the budget. We are required to conduct 2 public hearings on the budget. This, of course, is the first. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to accept any public comment and, of course, for you, the City Council, to provide us with any direction or changes that you might have proposed for the 2025 budget. Do want to provide some high-level review of the budget. Of course, you had the city manager's budget presentation. You've already conducted a revenue hearing. You've had a couple different workshops. So I'll try to keep my comments to changes and high level. So your total 2025 budget that is being proposed is just over 280 million. This is about 49.9 million less than this year. The main changes are transfers, capital transfers that occurred in our general fund to the building fund for our police station, which of course is under construction. We also have pretty significant changes in our 2 main utilities, the water and wastewater utility. We have a little lower capital improvement program for 2025, as well as some debt transactions that were budgeted in 2024 that aren't carrying forward to 2025. So that's covers kind of the majority of the decrease in the proposed budget. I do want to show it just in a little different viewpoint. This is your total 2025 proposed budget and pie chart. So you can see the percentage and you can really see where the budget is being focused. If you look at capital funds or capital projects, that's about 26% of our budget. The way I like to look at this is an investment in our community. This is addressing repair needs. So despite the fact that we have a budget that is not seeing growing revenues, we are still able to invest in our assets and that maintenance. So I think that's something to celebrate. Also looking at utilities, that's a very significant portion of our budget. And a good portion of that is also capital improvement. So again, really showing that we are able to reinvest back into our community.
Troy.
Yes.
So the $1.1 million in debt service, we had a presentation last week on the bonding to pay for the police station. Is that debt service us beginning to pay some of that back, or is that not happening until later on?
This is existing debt. So we have one last voter approved debt issue. That's about 363,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. We do have a limited tax general obligation bond outstanding for the RAC that is included, and that's about 586,000. We have not budgeted for the debt payments for the bond issue that you're going to be considering later. We'll have to do that through the amendment process. We really don't know what the structure of those bonds are going to look like. We have a best guess right now in terms of the market, but we actually won't know that until February. So
We can't
we'll.
put a number on here because it hasn't happened yet.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're anticipating that to be around 1.4 million. So we'll have a total of about 2.5 in debt.
Okay, sometime midpoint next year.
Yes.
Okay.
Looking at the general fund, of course, this is the fund that provides the funding for the services I think our citizens most identify with. Police, transportation, of course, city council, administrative services. We have a proposed budget of just over 78 million in the general fund. This is a reduction of about 19.6 million. Again, the reason here is primarily those transfers that occurred from the general fund to the building fund for the police station. You're seeing a couple other significant decreases, human and social services, about $3.2 million less. The majority of this is the $3 million that you actually discussed last week, and this has to do with the regional permanent supportive housing. So that's likely to be a carryover, but at this point, it's not in the 2025 2025 proposed budget. And again, you can see capital and transfers there at the bottom making up the most of the reduction. Looking at general fund revenues, of course, we did have the revenue hearing a couple weeks ago. I just want to highlight a couple changes. You can see service fees and all other. Service fees relates to about a $26,000 decrease. This is a decrease to the Joint Animal Services admin fee that Lacey charges. Lacey, of course, is responsible for the administrative and services, HR, personnel issues, budget, payroll, those types of things. So really just an acknowledgement that, all the partners are facing tight budgets, and so Lacey is foregoing its inflationary increase to those services.
Is that the service fees or all other? Because it looks like there's an increase in service fees.
Well, yeah, there is a variance there, so yeah, I should explain that. So the 2024 budget, 2025 budget, and then the variance from year to year, just highlighted from the last time. I'm sure you don't remember all the numbers to the dollar, but that is one that we did reduce. All other, we talked about the reserves and the fact that we could shift some reserves, so you're seeing a little bit of reduction there as well. So what you're seeing here is just a slight reduction, about 200,000 total. I do want to highlight some of the major budget initiatives that are included in the proposed budget. Of course, we have the police station. We have a budget proposed for you of just under 37 million for next year. We have phase 1 of Great Cougar Park, 6.5 million. We are on track. We just had an update yesterday that should go out to bid on December 11th. So almost there. We are replacing about 18 pieces of equipment and vehicles in our equipment rental fund, 2.7 million. So again, we're still able to maintain assets, replace them as needed. We have the RAC phase 3 design and environmental process. This is really just the beginning of the design process, but we need to get moving on that. So we have $1.5 million in the budget for that. I'll remind the council that we're using PFD reserves because we haven't issued the debt for that. So we are using reserves for that 1.5 million. We have 3 different parks, capital maintenance and repair projects in the budget. Woodland Creek Bridge, that's a little footbridge that is in a dire need of replacement. Longs Pond Dock, also same condition. It's pretty poor, so we need to replace that. And we're going to demolish the house that we bought a couple of years ago there at Long Lake Park, or adjacent to Long Lake Park. We also have 250,000 in the budget for preliminary design for Central City Hall improvements. You might remember the capital facilities plan that you adopted, I think it was January or February. It included a project, about $5.2 million for kind of a look and a different change to what we're doing here on the first floor of City Hall as well as the second floor, looking at flow and looking at ways we might change our service delivery. So starting the preliminary design for that, really kind of a scoping process to get a little bit closer to what that estimate may be in terms of how we might fund that. We have 500,000 in the proposed budget for strategic economic development investments. Of course, we have a $2.5 million committed council reserve for that purpose. Really, we don't have anything specific in mind, but you might remember during the city manager's presentation, this is one of the ways we're going to look at that structural deficit in our budget, looking at those investments. This is really gives us time to develop that plan from implementation in 2026. But we want to remain flexible in case an opportunity does arise. We do have this as a holding place. We have preliminary design for the Public Works Operations Facility improvements. This is also a project that was in the capital facilities plan you adopted earlier this year. Again, about $250,000, again, more of a scoping design project. I believe in the plan that is an estimated 66.6 or $66.4 million project. So again, we'll get a little bit closer to understanding what that need and what costs that might entail. We do have in the budget the first year of public defense standards. That's a 3-year phase-in, depending on what the state Supreme Court decides to do with the Bar Association's recommendations. But first year, 208,000. That could be as high as $1.3 million by the time we get to that 3rd year. So we're watching this very carefully. I haven't heard that the Supreme Court has taken up this issue, but it was around this time of year that they were slated to take that issue up, so hopefully we'll hear something soon. We have $200,000 in the budget for makerspace support. Of course, you heard from makerspace tonight, of course, but you had a presentation maybe 6 weeks or 8 weeks ago in terms of some need for just additional support in 2025. So that is in the budget. That is also coming from the strategic economic development investment reserves.
So for the public defense standards, the first year being 208, is that 208, are we setting that as a reserve? Or is that actually dollars that we have to use for additional public defense, like right now, this year in 2025?
It is in the budget. The phase-in, the 3-year phase-in will start on July 1st of 2025 if the Supreme Court does accept those recommendations. So we certainly want to make sure that we're prepared. That will have significant impacts on how many defense attorneys that we might have to hire, as well as the kind of the downhill effects it might have on the prosecution side. There's also supervision and administrative and social services requirements under that as well. So this is really just representing 1.5 years worth of potential increases, and as well as the caseload is a phased in. So it's reducing from, I think, 280 cases down to 120, and that's a 3-year reduction as well. So we won't see that full load in 2025, but we certainly want to be ready for that.
And then we're at that time, we were talking about the possibility of, as opposed to seeking out individual counsel, that we would look for a larger firm type situation to see if that was something that we could, if they had capacity. How's that search?
Well, I'll let Shannon kind of weigh in on that, but we have gone and looked at firm for capacity and also ability to phase in over the next 3 years, depending on what the Supreme Court decision is. But let Shannon kind of fill you in some details.
I think there's just a couple of additional elements that I add to what Troy already said. Is we're obviously planning for some of the changes, but we're also recognizing that when we're looking at our public defense, we also need to start increasing what we had contracted before previously. And so in the current contracts that we are pursuing, which we are actively in negotiations right now, and we are working with 2 firms, one of them being kind of the primary and then one being a conflict firm. We are looking to increase our case numbers as well, so we have more cases just to anticipate future needs.
Okay. There's a couple of factors, with the public defense standards of caseloads going down, but also as we grow as a community, our number of cases going up. So we have a couple of factors going there that kind of work against us. But like, these aren't being set aside reserves. We just got to anticipate and then going into the next budget cycle, see where that the decision comes out as, and we're going to have to start looking at budgeting for those future costs and figure out how we balance that ongoing impact.
We have found viable candidates to kind of fill that need.
Right. In the meantime, through this current search of looking for firms, we're looking at that in mind, and who firms that have the ability to provide backup, and then also, as Shannon mentioned, that we have conflict cases.
Okay. Thank you.
Taking a look at the utilities, as I showed in that earlier pie chart, significant portion of our budget. This is a really high level summary of what we have proposed for the water, wastewater, and stormwater capital programs in 2025. So again, significant investment and reinvestment in those important infrastructure pieces. Again, continuing with that theme, transportation, we have a $14.5 million total proposed budget. Significant projects, in the budget. Within this number also includes the transportation benefit district overlay and sidewalk repair budget of $4.3 million. To provide a little more detail, just as a reminder to the council, what projects we will be looking at next year. Probably something that might be a bit of a change in terms of how we're spending those dollars. There's 1.5 million in the proposed budget for sidewalk repair. It's about 3 times what we've done in the past, so I'm certainly recognizing that growing need as well. This budget does continue to invest in human and social services. You've seen these in the past. We are continuing with our human services grant program of 300,000, continuing with the rapid response team, cleanup team, continued support for regional housing, the mobile outreach team, which is now being funded by the new public safety sales tax. And of course, the affordable and supportive housing sales tax that we had the partnership with Thurston County. Altogether, this is just under $1 million of investment into human and social services. When you include the staff that we have dedicated to this, that's about a 1.2 annual investment. So workforce considerations, despite the fact that we're not seeing revenue growth, we do have some enhancements in the workforce that is included in the budget. First, within a general fund, really we have 3 positions, but only one is permanent, one is a temporary position, and one is really kind of a holding place and more of a communications of a great need, but also we need to make sure that we have the funding. So the first position is an engineering technician. This will be focused on stormwater inspection. So we are under a new stormwater permit as of, I think, July 1st, or maybe it's August 1st, but the summer really ramps up the need for inspection of stormwater facilities. I will note that this is primarily funded through service fees that the general fund charges the stormwater fund. So this should be primarily covered through stormwater utility fees. We have one position, a police lieutenant. This is more of an overlap position. We want to, as part of the commander phase out, we want to bring this position on early for training purposes, and we will be down one lieutenant, so that will be at the FBI Academy as well. So really, this is a bridge type position to get us through 2025. So again, a temporary position. And then a position I mentioned that we really need to keep an eye on is the journey level maintenance technician that will be dedicated to parks, primarily Great Cuyo Park, as well as the grounds at the new police station. So as we build these new facilities, of course, we have on increasing operations and maintenance needs. So hopefully the budget allows us to hire this position and come back to the council to authorize this position sometime mid-year next year. We do have 3 positions in our utilities. One is a water sampling journey level maintenance technician in our water department. The other 2, actually, we had you authorize last year, or this year actually, in the 2024 budget. So we had you authorize those 2 positions for wastewater for actual funding in 2025. And the reason we had you pre-approve those is we needed to order a significant piece of equipment that had about a year lead time. So we wanted to make sure you were going to allow us to fill those positions before we invested in that vehicle. So those 2 positions are now being proposed to be funded in 2025.
Has that equipment been delivered yet or no?
I think we had the chassis.
It hasn't.
Oh, it hasn't.
Well, you're supposed to receive the first unit by now, but right now, we've been put on notice it may be April, May. So it'll be going on 2 years in service.
Built backwards. So want to talk a little bit about the use of reserves. Of course, we talked about this in detail during the revenue hearing. But do want to highlight a couple changes, and I gave you a preview of these changes during that same hearing. So you might remember that our operating deficit was about $2.5 million. I was able to double check those numbers and feel comfortable with actually presenting this to you tonight. So we have a reduction of about 700,000 to that deficit. 500,000 is coming from what's highlighted on the screen, the strategic investment program. That was $200,000 that we had presented at the last hearing. So that again is the 500,000 we talked about in terms of investing back into the business community in terms of trying to change our tax base and address our deficit. We also had the mobile outreach team that was double budgeted. So that again is being paid by the new public safety sales tax, which is in a separate fund. So we're able to reduce that burden as well. So the operating deficit as it stands now is about $1.75 million. So our challenge next year is a little bit smaller. So I have to present that good news and celebrate one of my mistakes, actually. It's good to make a good mistake every once in a while.
That actually gives me, it makes, well, so the budget doesn't assume any grants that we've applied for or plan to apply for in the coming year.
It is not.
Because it can't, right? And so should we, receive a grant that we've applied for recently and or get a grant next year that we apply for sometime in the year of 2025, then that could balance this out, some of this, right? We could keep some dollars in place and not see a shortfall.
Sure, there are a lot of, yeah, that's absolutely true. And there are a lot of other factors that may bring this down as well. I don't think we're going to spend 100% of our budget. We can't spend more than that legally, so there's that. But we do take a conservative approach to both revenue projections and the expenditure side. We know that we're going to have vacancies throughout the year. It's just kind of a fact of life. But we assume that nobody will resign, nobody will retire. That's built in as well. So, this is worst case scenario unless, the economy changes and the revenue projections change. But there's also a fair amount of conservatism built into the revenue projections as well. So again, worst case scenario.
Higher than we thought. And if we do receive grants, anticipated grants or grants we haven't applied for yet, that's part of that whole budget amendment process we go through every year to account for that as well. So we can amend the budget to accept those grants.
And then that $700,000 right there, is that the same money that we were talking about for the parcel across from, that's different?
Yeah, that's different.
Okay. Just check.
That strategic investment program goes towards the Lacey Makerspace plus the $500,000 for the economic investment initiatives that we're going to work with council on and prioritize.
Okay.
Just, a quick highlight of other use of reserves in our other funds that make up the general fund. No changes from what you saw during the revenue hearing. In total, we're using about we're budgeted to use $11.5 million of reserves within the general fund. The vast majority of that is going to one-time projects. So we're, again, that 1.7 is the number that we're looking at in terms of operating deficit. So I do want to highlight some changes to the budget. Of course, we have an advertised budget on our website as well as a printed budget. I pretty much know as soon as we go to print, we'll have some changes, and I'm not wrong. So we've had a number of changes to the property tax projection. The county assessor makes adjustments throughout the budget season. I think it's done moving. In fact, I hope it is, because you're going to adopt property tax here hopefully in the next couple action items. But we did have a couple adjustments. We added the revenue or the refund levy that was an additional $147,000. That also reduced that deficit. And then we just had a slight change to the new construction factor. It actually went down, so that was about a $4,100 reduction. We have a $26,000 reduction to the joint animal services administrative fee that I mentioned earlier. A very slight increase to general legal and prosecution services. We had a 2024 amendment that didn't get carried over inadvertently, so about $3,900 of an increase. I mentioned the mobile outreach team budget. It was double budgeted, so we did decrease the budget by $213,000. Again, that does lower the need to use that budget policy reserve. And again, the $500,000 strategic investment fund that we're able to use, and that also lowered the need for the budget policy reserve. Getting close to the end, I just want to give you some perspectives on the budget. You know, the city's two top priorities are funded in the budget, both being the police station, Great Cuyo Park Phase 1A. This is going to use significant portions of reserves. We'll be issuing $18 million in debt for the police station, which is on your agenda for later this evening. But again, significant investments back into our community. $45.6 million of construction being proposed in water and our wastewater divisions. Regulation, growth, replacement of aging infrastructure, all driving that need. I mentioned the continued commitment to human and social services, so this is a budget that continues that. We have the funding in the budget for the full year funding for 9 police positions. This of course is related to the voter approved public safety tax that thanks to the leadership of Thurston County and Sheriff Sanders provided permanent funding for 5 police positions that we were funding from reserves, as well as 4 new police officer positions. So very thankful for that. This is a budget that we had to really take a really close look at budget requests from our departments. All of them much needed, but knowing the fact that we were looking at a deficit, there are very limited enhancements that are included in the budget. We of course want to keep that use of reserves to a minimum. I mentioned earlier during the reserve slides that we're investing in one-time capital, both new projects as well as repairs. So those are being funded with one-time reserves. And again, we have a proposed operating deficit that we're going to use reserves to cover of about $1.75 million. So our next steps in the budget, we have the second and final public hearing on the budget scheduled for December 3rd. And you are scheduled to consider adopting the budget on December 17th. This is a budget, I think, despite the fact it doesn't have a lot of growth in it, that we should be proud of. We're continuing to serve the public. There's not a reduction in staffing. There's not a reduction in service levels. So despite all those facts, it's the leadership of this council, it's the leadership of the city manager, clear fiscal policies that have really led us to this point of being in a position to be able to look at our budget in this fashion, to be able to take a careful look at the budget before acting too soon, before we actually see what might happen in the economy next year. So certainly I want to recognize that we wouldn't be here without those policies in that direction. Certainly want to recognize the directors and the departments. You know, we gave them the message that the budget would be tight and they came through. Of course, they presented enhancements because they needed them, but it really was a team effort to put this budget together to be in a position that it doesn't have reductions within it. I certainly cannot not recognize the finance staff. Chelsea Yarwood is here in the audience, accounting manager, but it's an entire finance team that goes behind this process to get us this far. So thank you everyone that's been involved. I'd be happy to turn this back over to the council for questions and of course any public comment that might.
Councilmember Greenstein.
I just want to say thank you. For a really long time, in the city of Lacey, going back to previous city managers and certainly previous councils, because of the sound fiscal responsibility that the city has shown for all these years, is why even though we have a little deficit this year, we're able to continue without having to cut any services, without having to have any layoffs. That's a testament to the hard work of staff. So thank you. Because not a lot of communities can say that. I mean, I've had a conversation with a local city manager in one of the other cities just over the weekend that I ran into. And, you know, they're gonna cut 23 positions in this next budget, and 5 of those are actual layoffs. So it's a huge testament to the work that staff has done, that we don't have to lay anyone off and that we don't have to cut any of the services that we provide the community. So thank you.
And well, I guess before I make any comment, I wanted to ask if there's any of the public who would like to comment on this budget or have something to share with the council in regards to this public hearing. Okay, well, seeing none, I definitely agree with what Councilmember Greenstein has said. We haven't had to change our service levels. We haven't had to raise any taxes, and we have the lowest rate, levy rate in, I believe, in the county. So at 72 cents per thousand, right? And so again, that's like he said, just because of just sharp fiscal planning and being conservative with the budget. So it's just fantastic. And I don't know where else you can get this level of services for 72 cents. Councilmember Vasquez.
I'm thinking about one of the public comments that we received in writing last week that was concerned about a reduction in our human and social services budget. And I talked a little bit with Rick about that. We haven't had a chance to dig into it, but I'm wondering if there's a section here in the staff report that talks about funding allocation that was reflected in two places. The mobile outreach team funding was reflected both in the public safety funds and in the human and social services department. So I'm wondering if actually, and Troy, maybe you can speak to this, I'm off the dome, but if we had that funding in the social services budget in the past, but we've created this new public safety budget, it may look as though we reduced the funding in the human and social services budget when actually we're not reducing any services. We just move the money to a place where it fits better in a new budget that we just created. So I wanted to raise that here because someone sent us an email really concerned that we were reducing the funding for human and social services when we may not have. In fact, we may have just shifted the money, but we're still providing the services to the community.
Yeah, I could give you the numbers. You're spot on. So the comparison between 2024 and 25, it's on paper reduction of 3,184,000. 3 million is from the one-time regional supportive housing project, so 3 million of the 3.184. And then there's the $213,520 from the double budgeting of the mobile outreach team. So it's actually more of a slight increase of, what is that, 29,000 or so.
I think that's worth just mentioning so that it's more transparent for the voters, because if they're looking at just the numbers, it looks like a big decrease, but that's not what it really is.
And the challenge, as Troy articulated, is when you have capital expenditures that tie to human services, but you have your ongoing operating expenditures for it, that can make that appearance. But you know, those capital expenditures come once every several years versus the ongoing operating. Just trying to distinguish between those and try to create some messaging in the budget summaries to reflect that is what we're trying to strive going forward in 2025.
And even in this lean budget moment, we're not stepping back from our commitment to providing services.
Correct. You know, so the human services grant, the $300,000 that we did this year, I remember Councilmember Greenstein and I came out that night and listened to all 15, 16 people. All of them had very worthy projects. It was awesome. And I'd hope that in this next budget, maybe we could bump that number up, but with a shortfall, there's just no way that we can do such a thing. However, if we do sometime in the year find balance in this budget without using any reserves, and we are able to bounce back from that 1.7, maybe even get to the positive, I'm wondering if we can potentially amend that dollar amount, because I think we've got in asks, we had 1.1, 1.2, somewhere in that ballpark.
Shannon probably knows the number.
1.2. And we had 300 available. I mean, they just came out in droves to say, I have a worthy thing that I've been doing out of my pocket.
And they were all worthy.
And they were worthy. And so that would be probably one of the areas, like if we are able to get some balance in the first quarter. And I know there's probably other areas and other people have different areas in the budget where they'd like to see, some improvement. Or a better number. In my case, it really is with this human services grant funding that we did, because the response we got was so good.
And that's always that challenge. There's always going to be a lot of great projects, more requests than the money that you have. I mean, But one of the things, and this could be a conversation at a future retreat, is how do we prioritize? Because there may be some needs for more human service programs and services, but also what are our operational needs? What are those essential services where we need to backfill and provide more support? So there's a whole different pieces where you can look at priorities and how to spend those dollars. And one thing too, it's something that the council approved to move forward with is, I don't want to forget, is the CBG funding going into entitlement communities. So instead of once every 3 years, having that as an annual process that we build into the Human Services Fund program, not the same, but they're going to be different processes, but under that same lens, you'll be able to have more dollars on an annual basis to be able to look at community needs.
Will 25 be the first year of that?
Yes.
It will be, right?
So next week's work session, I believe we're having a conversation about the Human Services Commission and start setting up that program into 2025 once we start receiving those dollars. So that's another thing that'll be part of a budget amendment that will go towards human services.
And I think too, there's gonna be a lot of unforeseen, with this next year, change in administration, how that affects the economy, how that affects grant funding. There's gonna be it's gonna be a pretty dramatic, probably shift in how things are going.
Yeah, I think maybe we won't see, the effect until maybe the second quarter.
Or later, yeah.
Things really start rolling. Councilmember Stedman.
So I just wanted to piggyback on the lowest levy rate, that's already been mentioned, but the highest credit rating that you can get, early loan payoffs that we've done in the past, and lowest debt ceiling of anybody at Western Washington I can think of. But all that puts us in a position where in lean times, we can still continue to do the things we do because we've just been responsible.
Yeah.
So it's, you communicating the numbers to the council in order to make good, sound financial decisions is critical, and that's you and your team. Thank you.
Troy, our debt ceiling at 964, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark, so this debt that we have represents what percentage? Very small.
Yeah, it's very small. I looked at it from a different lens earlier today. I was looking at a different limit because what's proposed is to issue limited tax GO bonds, which has a different limiting factor. So that is 1.5% of our assessed valuation. So it's different than the 7.5% that you're referring to, the 964 million. But I think of the LTGO limit, I think it's 1% of the overall limit. So I mean, it's just a very small percentage of our total legal capacity.
So our debt is 1% of our limit.
But, as we know, there's a difference between being able to afford to pay the debt back and legal limits. But yeah, the fact is we have very, very low debt.
No one will approach the limit.
Okay, is there anybody else wishing to comment on this budget or in this hearing? Okay, seeing none, then we will close this budget hearing at 7:14 p.m. Next on our agenda is resolutions. Before we get to the resolutions, I did want to address the executive session that we were supposed to have tonight. Okay, and I see that
It's at the end.
at the very end of okay, I saw the reminder come up for 7 o'clock and I didn't know if we really needed to adhere to that or we can make it all the way through.
That was just for planning purposes.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, so moving on, our next agenda item is resolutions, and tonight we have resolution 1159. Resolution authorizing the ad valorem tax, which is property tax, and again, we have our finance director, Troy Rue, presenting.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. If it pleases the council, I have one presentation for the next two action items. So this presentation will cover the proposed resolution 1159, as well as the proposed ordinance 1664. You've seen the numbers very similar to this during the revenue hearing, but here are the proposed changes that you accept for the 2025 property tax. Three factors are going into that change. One is the new construction. Of course, this is basically expanded tax base. That new construction is estimated at $209,284. The 1% authorized increase is $88,282. And the refund levy that I mentioned earlier during the hearing is $147,167. So the total proposed general property tax levy for 2025 is $9,272,934. This slide shows that same general levy as well as the one voter approved bond debt payment levy. That levy is $362,400. So you can see the total projected sales or property tax for Lacey is just over $9.6 million. I do want to illustrate the impact on a typical home here in Lacey. For 2025, we're using $500,000 as a typical home. We did have about 6.16% appreciation in assessed valuation throughout the county, so that was just an average across the county. So if you take that 6.16%, reduce the 500,000, you could see what that same home is valued this year in 2024. That's just over 471,000. So when you take 471,000 with the levy rate last year of about 76 cents per thousand, a typical home in Lacey would have paid $355.78. Fast forward to 2025 with that additional 6.16% appreciation and a total proposed levy of 73 cents per thousand, you have $365 for what we would call a typical home in Lacey. That's about a $9.22 increase being proposed. So the action items or the proposals and recommendation from staff is that the council adopt resolution 1159. This resolution authorizes that 1% increase to property tax. The second action that we would propose is adopting ordinance 1664. This will set the 2025 property tax levy. It'll set the general levy at $9,272,934, as well as set the voter approved GO bond payment repayment levy at $362,400. You have to answer any questions, but again, would hope you would take action on both of those.
I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt resolution number 1159, authorizing a 1% 2025 ad valorem tax levy increase.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? So I calculated this on a property that I owned earlier today. Right, just to see what the effect would be on that one property. So I took both the Lacey portions and I added the 1% to that. And it came out to 27.5 cents a month for the one property. Which I thought was a pretty fair deal for the service levels.
That's a good point you raised. Every property is going to be different in terms of how it might have appreciated or maybe even depreciated. But yeah, I mean, on average, just using that 500,000.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's gonna be, I would be surprised if any single property within Lacey actually meets the example I showed you on screen, because it's a hypothetical.
Yeah, and with the
More or less, but.
and with the retail value of maybe 530 on this property, the assessed value obviously is not, at that level, because in my experience, the retail value and the assessed value have a variance of probably about anywhere between 9 and 13% is what I've experienced over the last 20 years or so, right? And so having, crunching these numbers today on a property, and I thought, man, that's 27.5% per month. And the reason why I bring this up is because I think it's important for everybody to know that we're only talking about Lacey's portion of the taxes. Okay, so when you look at your tax bill and you see all the different, you see the school, you see the fire department, you see the noxious weed, you see Lacey is on there twice. And so really just Lacey's portion is at what we're adding the 1% to. For most of it, that's gonna come out to about $5 a year. That's my 2 cents on that.
It's good 2 cents.
Thank you. So it has been moved and seconded, at least, resolution 1159 has, I guess we can just take these one at a time.
Yeah, we just-
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded, and discussed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. We will adopt resolution 1159, authorizing the increase of the 2025 ad valorem tax. Next on our agenda is ordinances. And we have ordinance 1664, the ad valorem tax ordinance. Again, Troy, take it away.
He's already done it, so I would make a motion to approve ordinance number 1664, setting our tax rate for 2025.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Already talked it. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Cox.
I think he said 1664, and I think what we're voting on is 1665, aren't we?
No, 1664, the ad valorem
It
tax
is?
ordinance.
Yeah, we had 1159
Okay.
before.
I'm getting ahead of myself,
was
I'm
nice,
sorry.
yeah.
You're just
Okay.
excited about the next agenda item.
I'm just can't wait.
Doozy.
Sorry.
Okay, so next on our agenda is ordinance 1665, 2025 limited tax general obligation. Go bonds.
Thank you again, council. I believe we're going to have Dave Tregeser, Managing Director of DA Davidson Online, as well as Stacy Amasaki, who's the principal at Foster Garvey. I was just gonna say, Mr. Tregeser might be in the dark. He had alerted me just before the meeting that he had lost power. So I'm glad to see you, Dave, and thank you, Stacy, for being available. They are here available for, obviously, to support me, and if you have any questions that you weren't able to ask last week, but I'll be covering most of the presentation, if not all the presentation. So what you have before you for your consideration is ordinance 1665. This will authorize myself and the city manager to conduct the sale of limited tax general obligation bonds. Limited tax general obligation bonds really means no additional taxes. So the repayment of these bonds will come from existing revenues and the tax authority that the city already has. So again, no new tax levy for that. This ordinance authorizes a total principal amount of up to $18.3 million. Of course, this is intended to help us pay for the construction and the equipping of the new police station and training facility. The quite lengthy ordinance you have in the packet really gives us the framework on how we will conduct this bond issuance. It defines key terms. It establishes the legal basis for us to issue the debt. It confirms the necessity of the project. It also talks about applicable laws, both state and federal. And it also gives very specific provisions on how we will conduct the sale of these bonds. So really, this is really called a delegating bond ordinance. And again, you'd be delegating that authority to the finance director and city manager within certain parameters. But really what this allows us to do is it gives us flexibility within the market. The market changes constantly. So really it gives us a chance to be the most efficient, most effective, get us the most favorable terms in terms of interest rates and timing within the market. At the same time, maintaining the fiscal health of the city. So this is actually a relatively new way to issue bonds, maybe 15 years. Before we'd had to wait for a council meeting. We couldn't go to market when we wanted to. We'd had to wait to conduct a council meeting. We used to pause the meeting to sign all the documents. I think we did that last in 2010, before 2012, that changed, that allowed this flexibility. I'm grateful for that. It just makes things a lot easier, and certainly appreciate the council's trust in the city manager and myself. But in terms of kind of reminder of the project, this is a $61.5 million project. Back in April 2023, this council approved the funding strategy. I think really the message here is we were able to pay for the vast majority of the project using cash reserves. We're in the neighborhood of $36 million of reserves, cash that we're using for this project. Again, 18 million from this bond issue. We're using $18 million from real estate excise tax reserves. We're using our American Rescue Act plan monies of about $6.8 million. And we're using general fund reserves of about 18.7. So again, $61.5 million project. I do want to highlight section 4 of the ordinance. This is where you are, this contains the provisions where you're delegating the authority to conduct the bond sale to the city manager and myself. This does happen within certain parameters, so you're not giving us full authority, which is smart. So the parameters are, we cannot issue more than $18.3 million worth of debt. We talked about the $18 million needed for the project, but there are debt issuance costs that need to be paid, and we're gonna pay that from proceeds. So while it gives us a little flexibility in terms of what the market might be doing in case we might have to pay a premium on bonds versus a discount. Right now, the market is showing a discount, so we had issued less than 18 million, but a lot could happen in a 2.5 month period, so we want that flexibility. The interest rate maximum set is 6%, so we cannot issue bonds at an interest rate of more than 6%. I will note this is a little bit higher than we originally thought. You heard Mr. Tregeser at last week's work session talk about a little bit of volatility in the market. We want to make sure that we are in a position to issue debt just in case something changes between now and February 18th, I think is when we're scheduled for sale. The bonds have to actually happen. We actually had to sell the bonds within a year of the passage of this ordinance. So again, a limiting factor. And the bonds cannot mature at a date later than December 31st, 2044. That's really saying this is a 20-year term for bonds. So that is a quick review of the bond ordinance itself. We of course would recommend that you adopt ordinance that would authorize the sale of $18.3 million of limited tax general obligation bonds.
I'd move to adopt ordinance 1665 authorizing this finance director and city manager to conduct the sale of limited tax general obligation bonds.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Discussion, is there any?
The motion there says finance director or city manager. Do you both have to agree or just only one of you?
It's typically one.
Okay, that's why I just want to make sure that was clear.
Councilmember Greenstein.
Yeah, and just one comment, really. You know, again, this goes back to that fiscal responsibility that we talked about earlier. I don't know that there's very many jurisdictions, certainly in the South Sound, maybe in all of Washington, that could build a $65 million project without having to raise any taxes. That, you know, both from using reserve, a good deal of reserves, but then also issuing the debt, but having a structured way to pay that debt without having to raise taxes. I think that's a huge accomplishment for a city this size. So again, you know, just thank you to all of the current and past fiscal responsibility that the city has shown.
Will the Fed's December meeting have any effect on the percentage of these bonds?
Typically not. I mean, that's a short-term overnight rate. I don't know if Mr. Tregeser wants to weigh in on that, but we're talking about 20-year debt versus overnight rates. So, but anyway, I'm not sure if Mr. Tregeser has any other comments beyond that.
Good evening, council. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm kind of in the dark tonight, but thank you, Troy. You are absolutely correct. The Fed rate adjustments are already anticipated in the market, and they're expected to make adjustments in December. About 63% of the street believes that those adjustments will occur. And so those are reflected in the current market. And as Troy mentioned, we are issuing long-term fixed rate tax exempt bonds, but the Fed can only control short-term Fed rate. So there's not a lot of correlation. When I was here at the council before, I did mention that, you know, after the election, we had a lot of volatility. Our market thankfully has stabilized. a lot. Yields have come down some in the last week. And so that made up for the volatility after the election. But Troy's absolutely correct in that we will not be pricing bonds or locking in interest rates of these bonds until early February. And so the flexibility of this ordinance gives a significant amount of room for whatever the market will bear. Currently, the rates are in the low fours still compared to the maximum rate that we have in the ordinance of 6. So we feel there's a lot of room, and we'll do the best to get the best borrowing cost for the city.
Thank you. The bond market over the last 60 days has been fun to watch. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion on this ordinance? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. Let's get this thing done.
Thank you both.
Oh, yeah. Next on our agenda is ordinance number 1666. LMC 5.38, massage and reflexology services. Presenting, we have our city attorney, Dave Schneider, and
Yep, Dave will be able to present an overview. We have Chief Almada who's attending virtually to be able to answer any questions and details.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So good evening, council members. Good to see you again. As Rick indicated, I'm here today to talk about ordinance number 1666 related to massage and reflexology businesses. Now, at your November 5th meeting, Chief Almada gave a pretty thorough review and briefing on the proposed amendments. In a nutshell, the amendments do pretty much 3 things. They support the legitimate delivery of licensed massage and reflexology services. They seek to prevent unlicensed individuals and or businesses from providing these services. And the amendments work to deter criminal conduct, criminal activity that can be associated with the unlicensed practice of these sorts of services. Overall, the amendments are going to provide the city with a better tool to ensure that massage and reflexology businesses are operating properly and with transparency. So again, Chief Almada is available for questions. I'll certainly answer any questions if council has any, but we are recommending that council adopt ordinance number 1666 related to massage and reflexology businesses.
I would move to adopt ordinance 1666, amending Lacey Municipal Code 5.38, massage and reflexology services.
I'll second. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on this? I know we had Chief really give us the outline of it and took a deep dive in that last session that we had. I think it's gonna give the police department some teeth in this matter, and hopefully with us fully staffed, I was happy that we were able to do this, because I don't think with our staffing that we had before, that this would have been possible without those extra officers. Does anybody else have any discussion on this matter?
It's a no-brainer.
It's kind of a no-brainer.
Chief wanted to say anything.
Chief, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Just that I appreciate the consideration of council on this. I do believe it's the best step forward, and I appreciate your consideration of this proposal.
Well, it's been moved to second. Councilmember Stedman, do you have anything?
I just like how we're protecting legitimate businesses that, help our tax base.
And I would say I probably got more messages about this than anything over the entire course of the year from people. Who just were shocked that this stuff even goes on. So they were all very supportive of this, and I think it'll be good for us.
Okay, well, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of adopting ordinance 1666, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And are there any opposed? Seeing none, that ordinance passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. Have one listed item and one other item for tonight's report. And first, I want to turn it over to Shannon to talk about a utility or telecom franchise renewal.
Well, good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. I am here to talk about a telecommunications franchise renewal application that the city received. And for the purposes of tonight, it's just to review it and then to tentatively take final action in early December on December 3rd. So you've got in your packets the renewal application as well as the draft agreement. This is an application that came in from Astound Broadband LLC. And Astound has been here and we'll talk about that history. But before I do that, I just want to set this up by saying that we're governed by the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which effectively prohibits local government regulations so that they can't have the effect of prohibiting the provision of telecommunication services.
Wait, can you say that part again?
Yeah, let me clarify that. Is it
Please.
basically says that you can't put in regulations at the local level that has the effect of prohibiting the expansion of the provision of telecommunication services.
Okay, so we can't stop them from branching further.
You can't just do a
Just a sweeping.
moratorium and say no more telecommunications. You have to treat all telecommunication providers the same way.
Yeah.
We also, as part of that, have crafted in our municipal code a chapter that allows for us to process permits in a reasonable, fair, and equitable for all of our telecommunications applicants to match the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So you can see here, I'm showing that chapter, chapter 5.60 telecommunications, and we've got permit and manage responsible, fair, and equitable access. And also to provide predictable, enforceable, clear, and non-discriminatory local regulations, guidelines, and standards and timeframes for our telecommunication providers. So we've also got, as part of our telecommunications chapter, a master franchise agreement that is required for telecommunication providers if they intend to provide services here in the city. So they have to fill out an application and apply for it. We do review it with a multi-department review team, and then come to you all and provide an update and go over all of that process. So we did receive the application on August 29th. This included the renewal fee of $1,500. If it was a new franchise application, it would have been $3,000. Astound Broadband has been here previously. They've had franchise agreements, including one in 2015 and 2020. So they are renewing that for another 5-year period. And their purpose is to install and operate facilities to provide telecommunications, internet access, private line services to potential customers, including mobile backhaul and existing services to cell phone towers within the city. As part of their application process, they are not proposing to expand new infrastructure in the city. So it's just continuance of the infrastructure that they have. Like I mentioned, we reviewed this with a multi-department team here at the city, and also we have 128 days to make a determination. So that takes us to the end of December, and so that's why we're here tonight to do a review and then bring it back for consideration in December 3rd. As part of the process to determine whether or not to grant or deny, you have to have a legal ability to provide the services. You have to have the capacity to accommodate for alternatives. You also have to be able to mitigate or repair damages, and you have to serve the community's best interest. And this is all outlined in our LMC. Like I mentioned earlier, the city, when they're making their determination, must make reasonable, fair, and equitable determinations on access to public rights of the city for telecommunication purposes on a competitively neutral basis. So when you look at the draft agreement that is in your packet, it looks exactly the same as the draft agreements with our other telecommunication franchise fees. Other requirements, all of the approved franchisees also have to apply for and receive all applicable right-of-way and development permits. So this doesn't just give them the ability to do whatever they want in the right-of-way. They still need to go through our Public Works and Community and Economic Development Department for all of the applicable permits. They have to carry a minimum liability insurance of $2 million. They have to acquire a performance bond prior to any construction in the right-of-way, and they also have to follow what's outlined in our code for hierarchy of physical locations. This includes undergrounding requirements for places that have existing undergrounding requirements. They also have to pay all of the fees that are applicable to the city. So just when we're looking at applicable fees, the Internet Tax Freedom Act and internet services cannot be taxed. So just kind of a reminder on that. And we also cannot impose franchise fees on telephone businesses. The terms for all of our agreements are 5 years from the date of execution, which is why, again, they're coming back 5 years later for a renewal. So our recommendation, this is just informational tonight, but we will be coming back on December 3rd, is to take action on that date. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have about the renewal franchise agreement.
That's very great.
You said it was so the $1,500 fee is for the 5 years?
It's for
a renewal fee, basically, so that.
Yep, correct. It's for a renewal. And so if it was a new telecommunications provider, it's $3,000. And this is all established pursuant to previous resolutions by the city.
And these are trunk lines?
These can be a number of things, and it totally depends on the infrastructure that needs to be installed with each of the systems. But what we have right here with this proposal is that they are not installing any new infrastructure. It's just to continue the franchise to operate within our rights of way.
How many people do they serve?
I don't know the number of individuals that are served with this particular franchise.
And so if somebody else bought this franchise from them, it came back to us under a different name, then that would be a new application.
So you do have an ability to have a transfer of rights of the applications. But in the future, if they were coming for a renewal process, then yes, they would renew or get a new telecommunications franchise agreement under their existing name.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have anything?
I'm just glad you mentioned that they're not doing any new infrastructure, because I'm getting several phone calls from companies that are putting in new infrastructure, and then they have visitors every day selling that new service that's about to come on board, and it's like borderline, harassing when they come every single day, trying to sell you the same thing. So that makes me feel better that they're not doing the infrastructure, and so, but if we have any information on how to help residents that have this occurring with them, get with me so I can help them, with their challenge, if you will.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
One other item I want to highlight, it's kind of acknowledge one of our own. Just past October, the American Public Works Association Washington chapter held their annual conference, fall conference, and they had an annual night of excellence awards. And the purpose of those excellence awards is to recognize how the state's supposed to accomplish public works professionals have contributed to the field, to the chapter, and their community's health. And one of our recipients is our very own Scott Ager, our Public Works Director. He received a Outstanding Service Award from the Washington Chapter of Public Works Association. And I'll probably pay for this after the meeting or tomorrow, but part of that, they recognize Scott's 40 years of dedicated service to public works. He's worked at the city of Spokane County, and the last 17 years here with the city of Lacey. And they recognize his expertise in design, construction, operation, and executive leadership. And then he's also been given back to the profession as a longtime contributor to the chapter, as he served as their board member, also chapter president in 2018, as well as serving on their executive team, sharing his knowledge and throughout the Northwest Public Works Institute's courses, advocating for diversity and championing the public works community. So I just want to recognize an accomplishment and how Scott's recognized by his peers across the state.
Congratulations, Scott.
And then one other quick thankment. I want to thank, again, trying to put on with today's complexities of public meetings, you don't just show up in a public space. You have to have opportunity to broadcast hybrid meetings. And I just want to recognize the efforts that Shannon and Alyssa, our city clerk, as well as our communication team of Ty and Kelly, and I'm sure I'm probably missing somebody, but when they found the technical difficulties, they're trying to troubleshoot but ultimately got to a point where we're able to hold the meeting tonight in a little bit different format, but also be able to make sure it's accessible to the community. So I want to acknowledge that effort of work that was occurring for about an hour, hour and a half before the meeting and the scramble to do it. So I really appreciate it.
Well done.
That concludes my report.
Okay, moving on in our agenda. We are at boards, commissions, and committee reports. The mayor is not here tonight, so he will have to deliver at another date. I am next, and I just have a couple of quick things. I briefed last time on the EDC retreat that we did, and the thing that I forgot to mention is that December 5th is the regional economic forecast and innovation expo. And that is December 5th at the Great Wolf Lodge. If anybody is interested in going, it's a really great time to see, you know, what our county numbers are, what we produce, what it's costing us, where we have room for improvement, where things are headed in our county. So if you guys can make that, that would be great. I will be there as the incoming president for the Thurston County EDC. I will probably be doing opening remarks or something like that. So any support you guys want to lend would be awesome. Next, JazzCom met last night during Monday Night Football at 5:30 here. And one of the first things that we got into was our 2025 budget. We did have a budget hearing last night. The budget for 2025, the overall budget is 3.604949. And so of that budget, 59% of that budget is jurisdictional assessments. The rest of that budget is dollars that are granted, dollars that are that Sarah goes out and gets from different entities for events that are held, these types of things. Of that budget, 52% of that budget goes towards shelter operations for this shelter over here on Martin. And another 24% of that goes towards field operations. The shelter over here on Martin is starting to become a maintenance, an M&O kind of issue. Yeah, it's becoming more of a maintenance operation issue because of the age of the structures and the buildings and the way that it sits there. So that facility condition actually we had to spend we had to approve $16,000, which is already in reserves because there was a smoke detector failure, and so that repair is going to be a $16,000 repair. It's a capital cost. No budget amendment was needed. So the projected repairs upcoming could be potentially the HVAC, the roof, ongoing maintenance over the 3-year period or over a 5-year period is going to be about 3 million. And the ongoing maintenance over the next 3 years is going to be 1.5 million. So that obviously prompted me to ask about, where we are with our plan to get into something new. And those plans will be brought to us, I believe, Shannon said in January.
Early 2025.
Early 2020, that's right.
About time to implode that building.
Yeah, that building's pretty old. So early 2025 for a new facilities plan. There was a few legislative updates. They could be a little exhaustive, but I'll get into them just real quick. One of them is the cruelty and neglect. And none of these have bill numbers or anything like that, so, but there is a cruelty and neglect update. There's gonna be some changes there. One of the things that the team is hoping for is that if you do have a cruelty and neglect charge, or you are convicted, that you are no longer able to legally own animals. And so not sure how that's gonna come out, but there's also the helping people and pets stay together for during climate emergencies. There's a lot of times when, if you have to, seek shelter, maybe they don't accept an animal, right? And so if that's the case, then a lot of times people will just say, you know what, if he can't go in, I can't go in either. Or they'll just decide to go live, River Freeway overpass or something along those lines. So access to veterinary care, veterinary telehealth, Only 1 in 3 animals actually see care, get care, because a lot of our state is a veterinary desert. So there are times when people are just too far from a vet, not gonna happen. And so telecare is one of those things that may be up for a legislative ask. Pet inclusive housing, there are special restrictions that are not allowed. So a lot of times if, you know, saying that an entire breed is bad, or, just kind of a sweeping statement about, Akita or pit bull or whatever the case may be. So trying to get that out of the way so that people are not having to, say, not give up their non-human family members just so that they can have housing, because that's happening too. There is the possibility of the potential of a state banning of cat declawing. And I think that's already happened in,
California,
okay,
yeah, definitely.
so I know it probably doesn't seem like much, and I just learned this last night, but when you declaw a cat, it's like if you were to remove everything from the first knuckle forward on your hand. Apparently, it's pretty excruciating for the cats, and
Not cosmetic.
it is not cosmetic. Also that they don't scratch up your couch. There's also gonna be a $2 million facility design work ask for legislation this time around. There's also a regional policy request, legislative ask for correction of animal control districts, or creation of animal control districts. We just started talking about this last night, so well, at least last night was my first time hearing about it. So just like we have a fire district, just like we have school districts, this would be the creation of an animal control district with, some taxing authority for a certain given region. So obviously a district. These discussions are just getting started. So I think through back channels, so nobody's formed any sides of anything. Right now, it's really just in discussion. And so we may see that in a year, 6 months, I don't know. So Sarah Hawk, the executive director of JASCOM, she's been elected to the National Animal Care and Control Association Board. Right, and so it's a 12-member board, but it's a nationwide board. So out of all the states and all the executive directors and staff and all the different animal care places, they only have 12 people, and she's the only one from Washington State. Which is interesting because to say that, because I mean, there can only be, 12 states, right, that get representation, I guess, in this case. So 38 states don't, but apparently Sarah's peers feel that she is definitely worth being on this board, and nominated her and elected her to this board of 12 that represents the entire United States. Let's see. Petzl is a support application for people who have new pets. And so they can go on this app, they can ask questions, they can do all these different things. But when they do go on this app and they are looking for advice for this pet, the local jurisdiction actually gets a notification. So then that local jurisdiction can actually do the follow-up work with that person who went on the app to get, help for their pet. The medical team has a record 175 spay neuter surgeries. So I briefed it to you guys before, but now that the spay and neuters are done in-house, all right, so and they don't have to be farmed out to all these different places, so reduce transportation costs, or reduce the surgery costs. And so overall, it really just kind of boosts the budget of JASCOM. And so at this point, we are from June of last year till now, the center is at 1,500 surgeries, which is way ridiculous in comparison to what was happening before. So that is kind of one of those costs is down and numbers are up. Really a good improvement for this budget. In the month of October, JASCOM did 3 events, Nisqually Housing Fair, Trunk or Treat, and the Top Rung Brewery Beer, Bones, and Bands adoption event. And that is my report. Councilmember Greenstein.
Just one short report tonight. PCOM 911 met on November 6th. And the biggest topic, and is Chief Amata still with us? Just curious, because you've heard me talk about the new radio system for the last, several years. And yesterday was the cutover to go live with our police, the police for all of Thurston County. I was just wondering how things went. I heard everything went really well. But
He did send out, if he's not available, he did send out an email announcing that it did go over, but there's some little kinks and reminding how to use the system with the pause before starting this. But it sounded like things were going smoothly and they're improving on those protocols.
Excellent. And then today, fire went live. So the new radio system is up and working and should be a huge improvement for public safety for the community. So that's a big deal. We've been working on that for several years now. And the only other things is the phone equipment for the new phone system has started to arrive on site and that cutover should happen in the second quarter. And next year, they are anticipating running 5 hiring academies because they're still having a great deal of difficulty filling the dispatcher role, positions. I think we're 8 FTEs short right now of being fully staffed, and each of those academies can handle about 8 people. So one academy could fill enough spaces, but the turnover is pretty significant in that field. So, and that is my report.
Councilmember Stedman.
No report.
Councilmember Cox.
Okay, I have a few little things here. Intercity Transit Authority met on November the 6th. We conducted a public hearing on the draft 2025 budget. We also authorized the general manager to execute a task order with Stantec Architecture in the amount of $275,000. We declared an operations vehicle. It was a 2018 Ford Explorer 5-passenger vehicle as surplus. We scheduled a public hearing for the 2025-2030 draft strategic plan to be held at 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, December the 4th. And we discussed the interview questions to be presented to community representative candidates. So we're going to be filling an opening on the board for community representative. And those interviews will be held on the 22nd of November at 5:30, I think. And then, let's see, Lot and Regional Housing Council both met on the 13th. Lot, this just in, is a National Environmental Achievement Award winner from a premier industry in the clean water sector. It's the National Association of Clean Water Agencies. When Lot applied for the award, they branded their collective community programs such as septic conversion, the affordable housing contributions, climate, water quality, sea level rise, into kind of a watershed focus called Clean Water Community Connections, and it proved to be a winner. So that's really good to see Lot continue to get this national recognition. We discussed legislative priorities and approach for the coming year. The first priority is support for what's known as a Class A+ reclaimed water demonstration project. This is a project that demonstrates that you can make drinking water, if you treat it well enough, you can make drinking water, you can make beer from recycled water, reclaimed water. Another is on biosolids and land application. There is a move afoot to have more restrictions on biosolid application to crops and that sort of thing. There's also what's known as PFAS, the PFAS substances regulation. sea level rise adaptation, and the Deschutes estuary restoration. So that's the big five on those. And then we approved contracts for construction and engineering support for the next major project, which is the digester system improvements. And we also received an update on an upcoming project to enhance the asset management system. This is a technological piece there. And then we got a overall look at the draft 2025-2030 strategic plan. So lots. And then the Regional Housing Council also was focusing on legislative priorities. And the top three in that group were to provide long-term operational funds for programs established and paid for by the governor's Rights of Way initiative. So that when that, that money just doesn't go away, we find a way to keep things going here. Rent stabilization is the second priority, and then funding for Habitat for Humanity's 3900 Boulevard Road project. We also heard presentation on the communications plan for the Housing Council. Got to look at the 2024 annual report. I'm sorry, the 2024 annual report is part of the communications plan. These are cold notes here. The plan also includes developing and implementing a quarterly newsletter, an annual social media review, expanding the Housing Council's website, including a page for incentives for building low cost housing. So it's kind of the one-stop shop, surveying all the different jurisdictions so that developers can see in one place the various incentives that are offered there. And then developing a communications manual. They're going to be starting a little earlier than normal because it's going to be a big year for the grant, federal and state grant money that's coming in. A lot of these are on 2-year cycles, so we're starting a new 2-year cycle. So advisory boards are already drafting priorities and questions for the applicants. So they're going to get a 6-week head start and hopefully be able to get money out the door by May instead of having to wait until July, which will help the social services agencies a lot. We also had quite a discussion about the Housing Council's role in tenant protection. And we agreed that it was not a topic that could really be handled in a single meeting. So we're looking at doing a half-day retreat in the spring. And we're going to be using some home fund dollars to hire a planner to help with policy development. So it's kind of chicken and egg time, I guess, for the Housing Council in terms of we need to kind of look at where it goes from here and where it grows from here. So more to come on that. And that's my report.
Thank you. As you were talking about that, I was thinking about the Olympia rental registry.
Olympia what?
Rental registry.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I guess that would fall into your guys' lane too as well, potentially.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we're looking at rental protections. And I don't know that the Housing Council is ready to recommend that all of us create registries and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I got that question from somebody who called today.
Yeah.
Next we have Councilmember Vasquez.
So I don't have any reports for my committees, but there was one thing that I wanted to bring up before this council for a little bit of discussion perhaps, or just to put it on the agenda for the future. Back in September, former Lacey Mayor John Halverson came and spoke to us and offered public comment on an issue that impacts him, but also likely a number of other Lacey residents, folks that were retired state employees covered by the PERS 1 retirement plan. You may recall, he asked us to take a position on a recommendation to the legislature to implement a COLA for people covered by the PERS one retirement plan. So the average age of the people who are covered by that retirement plan is 80. I'm sure there are a number of folks in Lacey that used to work for the state and are now retired and are covered by that plan, but without action by the legislature, this plan doesn't get COLAs, and their average income is just shy of $28,000.
Oh, yeah.
So I would
That's right.
like for this council to have a conversation about taking a position, recommending support for that to the legislature, because it helps our retirees and our community.
Way more session on that.
Well, if the council would like, we can always put together some points of support and bring it back for council for review. At a future council meeting. But again, want to get the sense what the council full thought is on that before we start work.
You know, considering that, I think our senior population is somewhere between 18 and 24%. Lacey?
Yeah, it's somewhere around 20, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look back at the next, she knows off the top of her head.
No, I'll stop right
Okay.
there.
It's been a while since I looked at the numbers, but that sounds right.
Okay, so with that, we could potentially. I mean, we have a pretty good senior population, who I think would appreciate at least some support. I don't know how many of them are coming on, you know, are living here on a PERS one salary or pension, I should say. But it's definitely something that we should consider, especially given our senior population.
I think it's something we can discuss. I'm not sure where I stand on whether it's city business really, or whether we should be making a recommendation to the state on that, but it's certainly worth a conversation.
Okay. Councilmember Cox, you know anything?
I'm not on that, but I have one other thing I'd like to bring up.
Okay, can we finish this one first?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Dunning.
Yeah, I think it's worth having a conversation, just seeing what comes out of it.
Okay, Councilmember Sibley.
Myself as well, you know, there's a point where one can make the decision to sell their house, and there's other circumstances where people are forced out of their house. But I think a good discussion would be helpful.
Take a quick look at what the process is, get familiarized, and then also put together maybe some points, and we can bring it back to council, and the council can get a little more information and figure out if the council wants to weigh in on making any recommendations towards the state.
Okay.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Councilmember Cox.
Okay, so the city manager may be way ahead of me on this, but we received a letter from Larry Jefferson, president of the new Thurston County chapter of the NAACP. And he is requesting a proclamation or a resolution condemning hate crimes and discriminatory actions.
Yep, we
And
did. We did. We did.
right, so would it be appropriate to have the Commission on Equity recommend wording on that, or?
Well,
what-
so we already started
Okay.
response, as proclamations come in, they come into our public affairs and start crafting proclamations.
Right.
We already talked about bringing it before the Commission on Equity, I think Monday,
Okay,
for to weigh in on it, and then also we
Excellent.
responded to Larry that we're moving this forward and looking at potential agenda items, and we'll have a follow-up with him about confirmation.
I knew you'd be ahead of me on it. I just wanted to bring attention to it because it's.
We started on it immediately. As soon as I saw the email, I forwarded it and said, hey, let's, and I forwarded it to the mayor, and I forwarded it to the city manager.
Yeah.
So,
Alright.
that process has already begun.
Cool.
Okay, moving on with committee reports. Councilmember Dunning.
I have one very brief but probably impactful report from EOB. We received a resignation letter from Annette Pitts, the CEO. She has taken a position in Wyoming that is close to where her family grew up. So during the meeting today, we really just kind of discussed what those processes are going to look like. Her resignation date is the 31st of December, and she's already given a pretty detailed outline of things that need to be done, and is really helping that transition process. We don't have a meeting next month, but Sue Falish is the chair of the board, so I should at least still have an update on where we're at with filling that vacancy next month.
Okay, so that's a quick fill.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we have reached the end of this portion of our agenda, making it all the way through our boards and commission, we will have to, we will be going into an executive session. The council will now meet in the executive session to discuss litigation matters with legal counsel. There are no council members attending this remotely. The time is now 8:10 PM, and we will be in this executive session for 15 minutes, and I will come back out and adjourn this meeting.
I'll come. Yeah. Real quick.
Good night. Good night.
Oh, we still.
Wait till 8:25.
It is 8:25. And we have concluded our executive session. We have reached the end of our agenda, and I will call this meeting adjourned, and you keep it classy, Lacey.